This is Nathan Zero bringing you Club Baroness, episode number 10. We have a huge lineup tonight. We're going to be talking about the wrap-up of both the tag team tournament and the 1v1 tournament. I'm going to just work my way down the list. We have, of course, as usual, Gagnoon.
That's me.
Reagan.
Hello.
Try to pick it up a little bit. Murder Mastodon, formerly known as Tokyo Magnum.
How's it?
We got Zexxus, one half of the Zexxus team.
Hello, everyone.
We've got color commentator and play-by-play analyst, Poor Choices.
Howdy, y'all.
God, and we've got Vito and Math.
All right, game time.
Mr. Math, I guess, right?
That's right. The
so
new iteration.
Current monikers, so as not to confuse the newer players. We're going to start off by talking about the results of the tag tournament. Been 2 matches since the final, since the most recent Club Baroness, and they series. The first one was Bragan and PDDCM versus Zexxus. A very close, hard-fought sweep by Zexxus and Zexxus of Bragan and PDD. I know you guys probably have all watched the video. My read on it would be that the initial game, the Palace game, was really tight. I would characterize Zexxus and Zexxus as one of the better all teams in the game. They're really, really good at building up momentum and just running teams over. And that was exactly what happened. It got more and more gruesome as the series went along. And they end up sweeping. Let me see what they end up sweeping Palace Highway Panorama. The extent of my commentary on that series, because again, it was a sweep. The finals then was a rematch, I think, for the 3rd time in the series of Gagnoon and Murder Mastodon against Zexxus. Just a quick rundown. They did face each other in Swiss, and it was a win by Zexxus, the only loss that Gagnoon and Murder Mastodon had suffered up to that point. They, of course, swept their way through the eliminations rounds, including a win against Zexxus. That was an awesome series. Again, I'm assuming that everyone has seen it. By the way, if any of you guys want to pipe in here and just, chat on any of this stuff, but I'm just going to kind of zip through the outcome of that match real quickly. A really tight series. It went on. It was a relatively brief match. Only ran about 3.5 minutes. The 4 players were all on really, really similar builds, and it's a build that we all have become pretty familiar with at this point. It's kind of nature faith combos, running Will-O-Wisp, Bull of Fire, Flame Sword, the incrementing cost swords like Ice Sword and Reincarnation, of course. Nothing particularly janky got played. It was a really tight back and forth series. My description: the Tokyo and Gagnoon got control of the top. Zexxus made a push up one of the escalators that didn't work out too well, and the game was over very, very quickly thereafter.
Yeah.
Panorama.
Yeah, let's we'll back it up a little bit, and we'll hit.
I was gonna say,
the first series, and then we can dig a little more into the second series. We'll go ahead and let Zexxus, since he participated in both. Why don't you start with the first series there, which was myself and PDDCM versus you and Zexxus, and talk a little bit about that matchup, Zexxus.
We didn't practice at all before your match. And the highway arsenal is not touched. I literally just switched one skill in that arsenal, and it worked out fine, I guess, for what you guys were playing. Skill, which was the fly laser, but the reflect mirror helped me out a lot. So
yeah, you guys had a really good start on highway.
It just went that way. I feel he's more He's more aggressive than I am. Play with him, I feel like I'm the support and he's the aggressor, so.
Yeah.
Because you were at close range. I mean, a lot of the fight, a lot of the time when you were fighting with that, and you're right. I mean, that you were very effectively sending attacks back at Bragan. I think Bragan took more damage from his own attacks than from yours. In pretty short, short, medium to melee range, a lot of that game. I mean, you guys were right on top of each other, which is kind of the nature of those two spawns. If I remember correctly, Zexxus was spawned over top of the car, or perhaps at the car.
Yeah, my spawn was near the car. Yeah,
was over, right adjacent to you there, and kind of tucked into those stairs, right?
That's also too was the spawn points for that map. I guess because of the positioning of where he was at was like a wide open space to attack him.
Now, if I could just interject, you guys are all talking about Highway, but for me, the most interesting matchup is still on Palace. And it wouldn't be Poor Choices, and it wouldn't be a podcast, and it wouldn't be Bregan if we didn't talk about the unbeatable streak on Palace. I think this entire series can really be summed up in that first match. I think it really tells the story of the whole thing. So we see Bregan off to a really good start. You guys are really beating the hell out of PDDCM. But Bregan's dealing damage. You guys are trading back and forth. At one point, I think both you go down, you both come back up. Everybody's around the same health. And for me, I thought this was Bregan's to win or lose. I can't remember, Zexxus, if it was you or Zexxus that went down on the opposite side of the map, and one of you is stuck underneath the escalator. At that point, I think Bregan's got vibration laser, and instead of trying to get on the opposite side of the map to get an angle or to camp your spawn, they both try to get you out of the escalator, or Zexxus out of the escalator, and he makes an amazing picking at finish you guys off after that. I thought that was his match to win, and as much as he got beaten up, and even more so on the following maps, I think right there and then you took the entire momentum, the wind from his sails by crushing. I mean, because we've seen Bregan and PD, when they're off to that early map start, they are deadly. I think most of their wins are on those first three maps, statistically more than any of the other maps they play.
I would like to.
So I don't want to discount that particular level.
Huge.
I can agree with that.
You're right. That corpse recovery was a big part of it, but I do want to add to that I actually think, even though it was a loss, that Palace game was one of the best individual efforts I've ever seen out of Bregan. I thought Bregan's play in that series was phenomenal. It's true that corpse recovery, that corpse defense was unsuccessful, but I mean, if I recall, he was at you were at full health, just about game. I remember at one point watching that video thinking, Jesus Christ, Bregan still hasn't been touched. For all the for all the close combat, for all the crossfire that had happened. And then I think you plateaued again at 17. So I mean you actually held up for a very long time. Now it's true, of course, that they were pressuring PDD from early on. But yeah, I mean I actually thought
I don't want to discount PDD either, but Bregan was clearly the I don't think PD quite got off to the start he needed on Palace, and they took advantage of the 2-on-1, and Bregan couldn't save him in time a couple times, but he did. I think he got at least 3 pickups, maybe 2 or 3. So they kept him in, but just not quite enough. But I don't know. What did you think, Math, about that series in general?
I watched it a little bit. The first couple of matches, it's basically as I saw it, two brawlers versus Bregan. Bregan is a very good strategy player. He uses the terrain well. He's very good at picking up his partner. PDC, that's his name. Yeah,
PDCM.
Yeah, PDCM. He got screwed, especially on the highway, man. He it's just 2-on-1, and Bregan did a really good job of picking him up, but Zexxus and Zexxus they're like wolves. once they get on top of you, it's tough to bounce back. So, and when you fall behind in the series at first, it's a mental game, and it's a struggle because you're always worried about losing that next match and where you're falling. So it was a good series, but they got screwed a couple of times and they fell. So
I have a few things to add to that if you guys don't mind.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question real quick, Zexxus, before you go on?
Yeah.
So when I was watching the match, one question I had was, before you guys went into the match, did you guys already plan on double teaming PD, or is it just the way the spawn points worked and you saw what he had that you decided to attack him so viciously?
Not so much the spawn points for Palace. I started off with only 3 aura, and then my immediate reaction was just to use my decoy that I had in my hand, because I saw how Zexxus was just closing in early in the game. Without communicating, we do that a lot. Once we see me or Zexxus closing in early, one of us is already there just to help out, to support or just to attack. And I guess what happened with PD was he just didn't even communicate like, oh, let's go after PD. He just mentioned to me, watch out for PD. He has lasers. It's just we both were just attacking him.
Okay. Solid strategy. That was something that I was always curious about when you guys played in general, if you guys had a plan of attack on who you're getting. Because I noticed you guys do that a lot. All right.
And there was just don't really talk much when we are, when we both have our mics on. We mostly communicate when we're next to each other, because sometimes I will go to his house, I set up, I'll bring my laptop, and we communicate there. But really, I guess we have just that feel for each other's gameplay style that we just already know what we have to do. All it takes is for me to hear him attacking. And that's how we'll coordinate our attacks. So one or the other is going to land.
So silent but deadly. Got it.
I had one thing to add.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a question first of all for Bregan. Is why I was just wondering why you guys, instead of just this is when it was just him, why did you guys decide to just?
What was the question again?
When I was dead on Palace, I was wondering why you guys didn't close in on Zexxus, like both of you guys go there like to his spawn and attack instead of waiting one on top of him and the other across.
Davio made the call.
But,
that's PDDCM. He made the call to have us split up. I wanted to camp above him and have him move in and try and attack him under the escalator whenever I was standing above him, and then Davio told me to go and stand by you to try and get the laser fire down, which it did, and I got a lot of damage down. And I feel like where I really messed up there is he was at 4 health, and I walked a little too far down the stairs, and it opened me up to being able to be shot by the reincarnation. If I'd stayed a little bit further up the staircase, I could have continued to manual down the staircase from a secure spot. Like, it wasn't necessarily a bad call, it just wasn't executed to perfection by the end of it. But I think also if we'd gone in the melee, it could have worked, but I would have been manual aiming vibration lasers, and I might have been just as likely to hit my partner as to hit him. And since Davio had already died 4 times in that match, 1 shot would have killed him.
Yeah, I think hindsight's 20/20 there, but at the same time, I was thinking you could switch with Davio, go along the far side and get an angle so you wouldn't even have to manual to kind of force him out of the escalator. But at the same time, I mean, no matter what you do there, he's going to try to make a run. And just he capitalized on that positioning and turned it around.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. I mean, I will say, mid-range or long-range, whether I'm on a blaster or a laser or reincarnation or whatever, I always prefer being like kind of away from the corpse, shooting back at whoever's trying to go in for it. You've got someone doing, each role. So you've got a melee guy in close, and you've got hold on a sec. What's that? Oh, no, it's fine. I'll get it. That's what I felt like I was seeing when I watched that sequence, was a little bit of indecision as to where, whether or not it was going to be Bregan staying high with PD, with Davio pressuring from behind, or if the decision had been made to try to just fall back and both bombard him from the same direction. I don't remember what defense Zexxus was coming in with. He did have a defense, right? I was actually just trying to jump.
No defenses, no contacts.
Yeah, I don't think he had a defense.
Yeah,
it was still a cartwheeler, which is its own defense. I mean, part of what was going through,
but he's got to navigate those stairs, right? So I mean, sooner or later he's got to walk up the stairs.
Yeah, and that's where I dropped the balls. I moved a couple inches too far down the stairs. Part of what was going through my mind is I was really concerned that Davio. I don't remember if he had a shield himself at that time, but he had had trouble dealing with their attacks, and I was really worried that he would die again. And that's part of what kind of got me a little slipping up there, is I was just worried with him moving around the map. He hadn't had a very solid defense going through that game. Whether or not he had an actual defense, I mean, his actual ability to
timing
defend
and
himself.
whatnot. Yeah,
his ability to defend himself hadn't been on par that game, and I was worried that he would die somewhere in the middle. So I know that was an anxiety that was working against me, at least in that corpse run.
The truth of the matter is he's coming in with enough health to survive 3 shots from either one of you. It actually was not. Yeah, I mean, you guys were in a very advantageous position, and you did land a hit on him, so it's not as if he got out scot-free.
I think I hit him twice.
Yeah, reincarnation hit him, and then the laser as he was getting closer.
Yeah, he got hit by a rein and a laser.
Yeah, so he did get popped a couple times. So actually, I mean, it's not as if he was coming in 1 or 2 hits from death. He was actually, given the absence of like damage buffs and that sort of thing, it was not a terrible situation to get through. Corpse runs and corpse defenses, I think, really are the thing that separates the top teams, though, from the solid teams.
Yeah, it was a really good series.
I think that's fair.
Even though it was a 3-0, it was a fun series, and I enjoyed playing it.
And the Panorama series was just mayhem. I mean, that series absolutely could have gone either direction. There's no watching the end of that thing. It feels like a coin flip.
Something about Panorama. I don't know what I was thinking. Bunch of ricochet lasers flying everywhere, earthquake. I had no defenses. I literally had 1 skill for most of the match. It off. I don't know. That was just crazy.
I think that was another one though that came down to the corpse pickup there at the end. I think there was a slight delay on the other side, and you guys got a quick pickup and allowed to get an extra photon burst that I think sealed PD's fate. But that's another hindsight. Should he have tried to eliminate before going, or should he have made a quick run to Bregan? We can look at those from the beauty of seeing how it ended up. But in the moment, I mean, it's hard to say that that's a wrong choice or a poor choice.
Oh my God! It's in the heat of the game, the relative paucity of errors in these final 2 matches, the final 2 series, I should say, is remarkable. I mean, every game I've ever played that I've recorded, I've gone back and watched things that made me cringe. So there's never a time that you can always dissect the stuff afterward. So let's jump forward to the other series. So we got RebornGaignun and Murder Mastodon against Zexxus Zexxus. So this is the final series. Of course, it is double elimination. So if win, then Reborn and Mastodon would need to play yet another series against them. So Palace was actually, like I said, it was fairly similar. It was a tough, aggressive. Both teams are very aggressive, fast starting. And forth seesaw with not a whole lot of damage being dealt out. My read on that series is that it basically was one assault by Zexxus and Zexxus, I guess trying to get back up so that Zexxus could get to his items again, right? So he could maybe pick up another series of whatever was there.
I ended up picking an arsenal that was mostly close range. It was a melee arsenal, and that was my mistake that I made very badly, together with a bad hand that did not give me any defenses. So
and for me, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that low spawn Mastodon is I think the worst in that level, and yet there is something to be said for Zexxus is then on the deep end of the level behind a tree, and Zexxus is really kind of stuck with the other 2, having to go up that long trip up the escalator to get back to his items anytime he drops off for defense. So, I think that can go either way. It was definitely a very, very positional game, I thought, overall.
Yeah, for me, the spawns definitely exacerbated what I think was the core problem, and that is in these multiple matches, we saw Murder and Reborn really coordinate against double cartwheelers. I think their entire deck build scheme theme was how do we combo our skills together to do maximum damage to people who cannot jump. So we had the Demon of Decoy, the Sergeant of Frighten, whatever you want to call him, douchebag maybe, I don't know. It depends on how you feel about the situation. But you had those multiple decoys, and there were decoys on both sides. But I think Murders was more effective there. And then, of course, we saw the coordination with Frighten that was just godly on both Lane and Refinery, I think. They just designed their decks in a way, and we saw it with Silent. Double cartwheelers are pretty vulnerable to a lot of things, and I think that was one of the situations and reasons, and certainly something they prepared for in trying to set that up. And some of the spawns definitely helped, because positionally it separated them and split them and made them just a bit more vulnerable than I think they would normally be. But still a great matchup.
Yeah, I think I gotta say, I think Reborn and Murder have hacked the game to get the best spawns possible every time I play them. Every single time it's like, wow, they both started on the same side of highway again, and they have the coverage. I'm like, what is going on? But the series was really good. I watched it, and I kind of relate a lot of my gameplay similar to Zexxus. Zexxus, more of a basic rush, aggressive, rely a lot on your cartwheeling. But Reborn and Murder were just technical, man. They're like a precision like scalpel from a surgeon. Like they picked the right arsenal. They had a very solid game plan. The Frighten jackpot bomb, I was like, oh my god, that is annoying. I looked at it and I got annoyed. I'm like, who wants to cartwheel the rat crap? But it was the basic brawler versus the thinker match, and it was very entertaining to watch. I had a good time.
Yeah, it's a great series. And there was very little snark from either team, right? Like, I feel like, so the Refinery game opens, of course, with the Vicious Balance, which is a great play. Mm-hmm. Virtually no level race, right? I guess there was a hung. Which one was it?
There was the Forest Sanctuary on Pano,
right? Okay,
so I think that basically backfired.
Reduce entropy
at all.
Reduce entropy. Sorry,
you guys hung it and lost.
That's awesome.
Let that be a lesson.
What stage was that again?
Say about that series is I was really fascinated by the build that Gaignun brought. So it's a level curating build using Mistblade, right, to keep your level low, and Swift Punch, I think, was your. I didn't get too deep into it, but we were far enough that I feel fairly confident that is like the crux of the build. I don't know what else is going to be coming beyond that.
It was
basically I would call that a very daring build.
Yeah, it was Mistblade, Swift Punch with like Dragon Slayers and Tiger Strength. There wasn't a whole lot of other like attack depth to it.
Having been on the other side of that while he was tweaking it, it's not fun to be on the other side of it.
Do you have Vicious Balance in that as well?
The only purples I ran was Dragon Slayer, and Murder can talk. I can't remember. He ran like Demon's Fire? Rian?
Yeah, I was running Demon's Fire, Rian's, and Lingering Flames.
Who runs Demon's Fires? Oh my god.
I think he had you had a Tiger Strength in there or Trance?
I was running a Trance in mine.
Okay.
Demon's Fire. Demon's Fire was really specific because if you shoot 2, you cannot cartwheel both. 0%. We tested it repeatedly. Just
really?
Challenge accepted.
You already took that challenge. You failed.
Demon's Fire has a better. The Demon's Fire has a better accuracy than a Will-O-Wisp.
I think it's the same accuracy, but the speed is more punishing.
Faster.
Yeah, the speed is more punishing.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on that game. I ended up not being able to do much because I didn't draw a shield, and they both had reincarnations, and that's a jumper's worst nightmare. Couldn't erase it, can't dodge it, so I had to really play around the walls instead of digging through looking for a shield. I think I ended up getting one at 11 capsules left, but it was too late by then.
Right.
And let me just put this question to the group: do we think that Panorama is the like kind of random level, the most like equalizing one, where the two teams is really just a free for all, or do we think that that's some of the other levels that have more disparity?
I think City actually is the most random, and you can be, categorically screwed if you are in the wrong place in the wrong section, or if you're hit by trash that doesn't follow the laws of physics. So I think as much as there is wrong with Pano, I think City is more random completely, personally.
I like Panorama. I think Panorama is an awesome stage. It's just like you can, if you maneuver around it correctly, it can be either brutal or you can totally use it to your advantage and destroy another team. Even though it's ricochet, laser, trance central, I think it's still pretty fun. I usually run a visible deck on it, which is always entertaining.
Gotcha. Zexxus, were either of you guys running ricochet there?
Oh, I don't think we did actually. I remember us just ending the match with reincarnations.
I keep forgetting which one it was. It wasn't Far Sanctuary.
Those are Reduced Entropy.
So that would have prevented it anyway. I was just curious whether you guys ran that there, but I guess
Zexxus was on Key Faith with Tiger Strength Rian, and Zexxus had a Nature Faith, possibly that build we see in 1v1 with Heats and Rian. I'm looking at it right now in the replay, so that's why I can see this.
Gotcha. Thought you were Rain Man there for a second.
Actually, it is worth mentioning. I do think that there is, as especially for like people who really focus on the deck building aspect of this game, there's something to be said that like as you play a lot and you really start to get a mastery of like what counters what works well with what, and you build up sort of a language, like a running language of creating like internal terminology, it does become a lot easier to track games. It was always interesting to me if we were playing a ton, the Wolf and I, and prepping for something, how once we were like at full throttle, I could track like 15 games in a row and be able to talk about them all and what the guys brought, just because it was all like sort of like a living sentence rather than just game after game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if he actually did have that at his fingertips. The Refinery game was great, and I think what's cool about it is it actually had a good demonstration of a phenomenal corpse defense at the end. And if I remember correctly, it's Zexxus making his way up to that outer spawn, right, to get up to Zexxus. Gaignun drops in behind him, and I think manuals him with a railgun, right?
Yeah, that's what ended up happening.
In the way the match ended?
It wasn't the very end, but it was like one of those corpse runs. It was just devastating. He just gave up. I think he took like 12 points of damage heading in. Another 40 seconds after that, if I remember correctly.
It was just Zexxus alive.
So it was the other way around. So Zexxus was down, and Zexxus was the one who got drilled.
Yeah, I remember Zexxus dying behind me, and as he died, I had already jumped down to the lower level.
Oh yeah,
it made it difficult. I was on the same level as him, and then as he told me that he was dead, I couldn't go back up easily to get him.
You were both rushing murder, and I hit him as he was using a Willow and coming down. So it was awkward timing and placement.
Yeah, knocked him right out of the air.
That's how that ended.
Just notice Gaignun standing stationary with the aura in hand at the top. The beginning of the game before they used the Vicious Balance.
I think I remember that. Yeah, I do.
tough because what are you going to do? You kind of have to just start going forward. I was just curious whether, from the Wolf loves that play. It's like his favorite play in this game. And he has this fantasy that the other team sees it and assumes that he's dead and are going to come and try to double team him. And then we'll, pop the vicious balance right as they're arriving at him, and he'll be able to use his aura and chase back after them. It doesn't often work that way because the other team, of course, realizes what the hell's going on and then stuff picking up aura at like 3 or 4.
I will say I don't want to give away the deck, but I'm very surprised how quickly Vicious Balance seems to come up in the very beginning of games. We were almost talking about this to see if it was truly random spawn or if some skills were weighted to be early game skills.
I wonder the same thing. I've got a Singleton VB in 2 of my decks, and I do feel like they come up a lot, but you have to figure you're probably there's a chance if you mulligan that you get a skill back, right? Have we determined that?
Yeah.
Right.
It is possible. So it's not a clean 11 skills at the top, which is to say 3 on the table, 4 in hand, and then whatever the other 4 would be if you swap. But it does feel like it comes up, at least half the time, maybe more. So I've had the same anecdotal experience, but again, it's always hard to gauge that if you're not actually tracking it.
Right. I have anecdotal because I played against that deck
He played against it quite
multiple
a
times.
bit. I want to just mention that this is a little call out to Murder, not at all a me thing. That Murder is really good at knowing how to set up a deck to get the skills he wants early. It's not exactly random in such that you build a deck knowing what kind of chances you have to make things happen. His mulligan decisions are mathematical, even if he doesn't know it. He's either got it or he doesn't got it.
That game, actually, I didn't even spawn with Vicious Balance in my hand. I think I had the packs for it. So I run 2 Mephisto's packs and 2 Vicious Balances. So it's almost like I have 4 Vicious Balances in my deck to ensure I always get it right off the bat.
Is at the top.
Okay, yeah, I didn't want to give too much away.
I appreciate that.
Well, look, we all watched the video. I mean, it's not like... which, of course, brings us to Lane. This is a strange one. So Gaignun is just relentlessly dropping Lunar Force, so everyone's doing the +1 damage. And I'm always interested in how that particular environmental changes the course of the game, because there's that thing of if I've got a 4 damage skill, I can kill you in 5 shots. If I've got a 5 damage skill, I can kill you in 4 shots. And there's a huge difference between those 2 things, right? It really shifts around the value of a flame sword, for example, and Arc of Fire is another good example of skills. It feels like some of those threshold skills that do 3 and 4 points of damage really kind of just start being terrifying once the Lunar Force is down, because the game can end so quickly. And yet that was a really long game. It was by far the longest of the series.
Another thing that Lunar Force does when you put it down is it changes the way you block. So Lunar Force, with it down, Rians now break flash holes. You just can't block with a flash hole and expect it to be safe. Same thing with Glacial Walls and all those other 3-cost defenses, which is something I was worried with when we were even playtesting it, just because some of my defenses in that deck, as you saw, weren't the best. I have a Psycho Shell in that deck. Well, now Vibration Blaster breaks that Psycho Shell. And these are things that you have to consider while you're playing and what you're going to pick up. So it really does change the dynamic of the game in a different way.
What about Darkhold? Do you guys run Darkhold in that combo?
I did not run Darkhold in there. Usually I do, but in that one I didn't, because I figured Zexxus and Zexxus were going to be trying to double team me. So I didn't want to get low on life because of my Darkhold.
Well, in that one, even with just a +1, your Darkhold's not really safe.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it does at least make, for instance, Will-O-Wisp and Reincarnation not auto breaks, right? So it does make a difference.
But nobody was also +1. I think Zexxus had just as many heats as Reborn.
Yeah, my plan wasn't to just break flash holes. I was using 8 damage Rian, the Arsenal.
Yeah.
I think I was actually only at 7, but the point's still being made.
You probably had an ability to get to 8.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised, actually, throughout that series. I don't remember ever seeing anyone Turbulence. I feel like I didn't see a single Turbulence played that entire 4-game series. Am I correct in that?
That's one of our mistakes, is that we have Turbulence arsenals, and that's, I think, part of the reason that cost us our series against Reborn and did not use turbulence at all.
To our credit, we tested a lot against turbulence, and I'll be honest, Murder is the kind of player who'd be like, you know what, I'm gonna chill with this extra frighten in my base. And when you do turbulence him, you'll be like, I thought I got rid of that frighten, and it just pops out of nowhere. That takes
multiple.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
It just takes a little bit of self-control to remember that your opponent, like, oh, he's on nature. If one of them's on nature, don't use both of our, don't pick up our second frighten or our second decoy.
Oh yeah,
Definitely more than one decoy. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I was surprised not to see turbulence as well.
Like I said in my write-up, I think there was a sequence of plays on the roof with Gagnon just dodging and dodging and dodging and dodging and dodging and dodging, and it's like brutal to watch. It's frustrating. It's one of those moments where you're actually watching from the person's point of view and starting to want them to get hit because they're just dodging everything.
Thanks.
The bile on the other side. Not anything to do specifically with you, but just like it was a remarkably long sequence. It starts around the 28 minute mark of the version, so the one that Reagan posted.
It's funny during that moment. I'm just at my base while he's doing that. I didn't know he was doing that at the time because he did not act like he was in distress or anything. So I was just like calmly going through my skills, and then I went ahead and watched the video itself, and I saw him doing that while I was just calmly, going through my capsules. It was pretty crazy to watch because I had no clue that was going on while I was over there just chilling.
I want to give him credit
and that's a
for
tremendous
that.
luxury because I can tell you luxury to have as a teammate because I can tell you that if the Wolf were being 2v1 by Zexxus and Zexxus, he'd be screaming like a 5-year-old girl.
I think that exact quote was from one of the first videos Reborn recorded, though. He's on Panorama. He literally takes like 16 damage, and he says something to the effect of, "Oh, I'm at 4 health. They're both shooting at me, but I'm fine. Just go pick up your skill." And I don't think he actually goes down there and takes it all the way back to his base. So, I mean, if he's got the confidence to dodge it and he doesn't call it out, I mean, it didn't really backfire on him there. So, more power to him.
Yeah.
I've talked about being calm and collected as an important skill in this game, and that's never going to change. Like, the fact that I don't freak out about it doesn't mean that there's not a chance in things hitting me. It means that it's not going to do anything for me to start screaming about it. If I don't see him nearby or with a skill to help, what am I going to say? That's my theory.
There's actually another moment like that, and I feel like there's just a certain there's like a couple of advanced player moves that see at pretty high level Phantom does play, and the other one that stands out to me in this is going back to Palace, when Zexxus and Zexxus made the push up the escalator, and when they initially made that push, they took Mastodon down, they knocked him down, I forget how, flame sword or something, and Gagnon his way into the midst of the melee and then reeled around at the far side of the melee and fired back into it. And it's just one of those plays where, obviously you were watching everyone to see, an attack animation start, and you didn't see that, and so you didn't throw up a defense, you didn't jump or roll or anything, you just moved your way through, got to the position you wanted to be in, and then turned around and fired. But the amount of personal fortitude it would take to make that move, in the finals, I think is considerable. And so that, those two moments actually kind of reminded me of each other, as being that you need to have a really strong answer for, those types of plays, because they're going to be coming. You've got to have a way to really shut down someone who can make composed plays at every stage of the game, which I think is a really difficult thing to do in this game.
I think it's even harder against Zexxus and Zexxus. I mean, you saw the 1v1 with Zexxus versus Reborn, and the amount of patience and just testing shields and timing on swords. They're not aiming for swords. They're aiming for the counter of the sword slash. The amount of composure, patience, and thinking in those kind of moves is, on both their part, just insane.
Both of us, we talked about this. We both agreed, we're sweating bullets, heart racing. It is not, easy by any means, just because it is accomplishable.
Yeah. Yep. Series, and that was a 3-1 victory for Gagnon and Mastodon, and that, of course, won them the championship. And there are prizes. I have settled on what the prize is going to be for you guys, and so I'm going to have to get addresses from you. I'll do that via emails tonight or tomorrow, because I've got something I'm going to be kicking out to you guys as congratulations for winning a tag tournament. And all it took was 4 months, a really lean, easy tournament. A mere 4 months of play.
It was an awesome tournament, though.
Yeah, I think congratulations are definitely in order for the tournament winners. The finals really delivered too. It wasn't as long as some may have expected, but it was still a good 4-game series, and all of the games were really fun to watch. There wasn't really any that were boring. It was, just a great series all around. It was a great way to cap off the tag tournament. We had a lot of great matches in the tag tournament, and talking about that, let's go through, and I thought this would be fun for everybody in here that's still part of the call. I don't know how much longer Murder is going to be sticking around. I was going to ask, what was everybody's favorite moment of the tag tournament? Why don't we start with Murder, since I know he's on short time.
My favorite moment of the tag tournament. Probably watching Silent and Gotrix go up against Zexxus and Zexxus.
Oh, that one was mine.
Me too.
Mine too. Did you really just do that? Use everybody's favorite moment? Is it the city game with jackpot back and forth?
Yes. Don't worry, I won't use it 3 times in a row.
Yeah,
I totally will use it 3 times in a row.
Yeah, that was hands down mine. But if that's all of ours, my other favorite moment. This is gonna sound conceited, but using the jackpot Levitt Skywalk arsenal. Was really fun because I had no faith in it before we went into it. So seeing it work and playing it was a lot of fun.
Okay, Math, tell us about your favorite moment of the tournament.
Gosh, I gotta say the as Murder just said, the jackpot Skywalk. It annoyed me. I was just looking at a match like, isn't that a damn problem? It was a really good match. Just to see some of the tech from some of the teams, like Gotrix and Silent had some really good tech in their arsenals. Reborn and Murder has some very good tech, and Zexxus and Zexxus, man, two brawlers. I like to see 2 brawlers on teams together go at it. So there was a lot of good matches. I thought it was a very good tag tournament.
I guess I'll go. That was clearly my favorite, was the Silent one. It's hard for me to pick out individual moments because it's all kind of running together in my head, but I know one of the things I like seeing throughout this tournament, and probably because it went on for 4 months, was just because the amount of videos that people were posting. I think the meta was able to shift really quickly. And so you'd see something work and it would just be rapidly adopted by everyone. So I think the double jackpot combo was, picked up right after we saw it. I think the first time we saw double Tiger Strength Ricochet Opties was during the tournament, and then Ricochet, not that nobody used it, but just using it as blatantly and as balls to the walls. It was being used for a couple months there. Pretty much all you saw on Pano. Just big sweeping moments like that where the entire meta of the game shifts just a little bit because of how big those matches feel. I thought that was pretty cool.
I would have to agree that my favorite was the Silent and Gotrix series. Toes and to have to dodge those jackpots.
Are you telling me you enjoyed dodging those jackpots, you sadist?
It's fun to watch.
It had us on our toes, and we did lose 1 match against them, and I'd have to say the panorama was my favorite.
I had to look that up. It's playing now just for you guys. Sorry.
I got to chime in, and I'm going to go with the trend of all these Zexxus and Zexxus matches. One of my favorites actually was at the very beginning of the tournament. It was one of the first matches played. It was Evolution and Esper versus Zexxus and Zexxus. Because if anybody remembers, those guys, they never really developed their synergy, and they went on to go, I think, 0-4 in the Swiss round.
Yeah.
But they were inches away from taking a first-round win over Zexxus and Zexxus. And it was just really fun to watch. They pulled out the very first still moment.
Was that the still moment?
Yeah, the still moment disintegrate, and you just saw evolution pick apart Zexxus and Zexxus, and it was really funny to watch because Zexxus and Zexxus has basically been the narrative through the entire tournament is that these were the guys to beat right now. It started out, it was them and Doom were the two that were really hot. And just watching in the very first round that they were so close to losing to this, mishmash of players who'd never played together and hardly practiced was just really fun for me.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's an underdog moment there, and I don't think a lot of people noticed that. They almost took that from us.
Yeah, they were like 0.75 Mighty Ducks. They weren't quite all the way there, but it was fun to watch.
V formation.
Now, is there anybody who hasn't done their favorite moment?
I actually have a different favorite moment. So, yes, that one was hilarious with Gotrix and Silent. But my personal favorite moment, and it's definitely biased me being in there, but it's also... So, I'll bring you back to the Swiss rounds. Doom wins 3-0 round 1. Doom wins 3-0 round 2. Round 3, me and Murder are 0-2 against Doom. It looks like it's going to happen again. And the way that Refinery Lane sign, I think it was Refinery Lane sign, went, I just, all of that, but specifically hitting Doom with really big reincarnations was really a good moment to me because people still call him unbeatable, but before, there wasn't, it was godhood. So the fact that there's new blood coming, Zexxus and Zexxus are the epitome of new blood also. And so just that whole feeling of the tournament, it felt very 2017.
Yeah, if you watch that video of our match, you can actually hear how excited I was at the very end. That was I forgot about that moment. That was pretty awesome.
It was awesome. That was a really cool moment. I think it's easy to forget that Mimic and Mesrath came out of Swiss in 4th place. They went 3-1 through the series and are also... they're certainly a team that I was not familiar with back in the old days. So I consider them to be a complete unknown. I really didn't know anything. We never got to play them, but I like their final series against Math and Ryder. Was I thought a really good one, just like a.
Yeah, the thing about actually after me and Will were out of the tournament, I actually helped Mimic and Mesrath with a couple of their. Tech in their decks, and man, they're really solid players. They try a little bit of everything. They're good technically, they're good brawling. Like they're just, I don't know, they're a solid team. I didn't see them coming out of the tournament so high, but they surprised the heck out of me. They did a really good job.
It wasn't like a shot in the dark either. They actually finished 4th in the double elimination as well. So they actually legitimately were the number 4 team, both in Swiss and in double elimination, where of course the competition's much stiffer.
And would you remind me who they beat to take 4th? No one of note, right?
They beat, if I recall correctly, Doom and Roaming Ronin. So
that's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah.
Man, if only somebody during one of these podcasts...
Maybe you could remind us who they lost to.
I think Bregan and PD reminded them who had the tech in their pocket like none other and had been doing this for a long time and remembered they're still old dogs and they knew what they were doing.
Rock shot master, Bregan.
I really do hope Mimic and Mesrath show up for the next tournament, whenever that may be, because we did not get to play them and I feel like we missed out.
Well, speaking of missing out on a specific matchup, that's actually the next thing I wanted to talk about. So out of the tag tournament, all the matchups we got to see, what was the matchup that you most wish you could have seen, but we didn't get a chance to? We'll go ahead and start with poor choices on that one.
Did you play Doom?
Who, me?
Bregan? Yeah.
Yeah, it was I got reverse swept. That was where the reverse swept meme started.
Well, then Back to me. I got to think.
I got mine. It's definitely. I wanted to see Zexxus and Zexxus go up against Doom and Ronin. I was waiting for that. I feel it would have been an amazing match, and just very like Poor Choice was talking, or Math, was talking about, just two brawlers going at it. Two of the best team brawlers I feel going at it would have been a lot of fun to watch.
What about you,
At
Matt?
the other end of the spectrum, I really wanted to see Esper and Evolution go against Dwayne and Jay. I was really disappointed. That was the final match. Both teams kind of just petered out and didn't schedule their round 4 Swiss. But I was actually really looking forward to seeing those two guys go against each other, because in both cases they had put up really good fights against other teams, and I wanted one of them to get a win. Those, of course, were the two teams who went 0-3 through Swiss. So I was actually really eager to see that. I mean, that's just a dumb completionist thing, but I do wish that series had been played.
What about you, Math?
I'm with Murder on, actually, with Zexxus and Zexxus versus Doom and Ronin. I think Doom is still the dude is a good player, man. Like, every time I play him, I have a hard time getting through his defensive. His field awareness on every map is just out of control, and his support is really good. I think he's a really good player, and I think that would have been a great matchup. And also, as Nathan said, Dwayne and Jay, I wish they would have finished off their sets, because I think Jay's a really, really good player. Really solid cartwheeler. Dwayne, I thought, was on his way up. I think he left a little bit too early. I think if he would have kept playing and actually developed more of a synergy with Jay, I think they could have made it a little bit farther. So I would have liked to see them versus a little bit of the higher competition.
Oh, it seems we lost Zexxus temporarily. I was just about to ask him if there was one for him. Poor Choices, have you picked one yet?
Well, yeah, everyone versus Poor Choices would have been fun. I feel like I completely missed out here. No, looking back on it, I think for me, Go Tricks and Silent versus Monkey and Silver Saint. I'm looking through.
Yeah.
I don't think they played each other.
One.
I think that would have been a really even match with a lot of crazy shit going on. I think that could have been fun.
What about you, Zexxus? What matchup do you feel like we missed out on getting to see in the tag tournament?
Versus Doom.
You guys versus Doom? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
People
right.
that
Really like that.
This is everyone's white whale.
yeah.
Waiting for
You know,
it.
I feel like, things obviously fell apart for whatever reason with him and Ronin, and I'm really excited to see when Doom bounces back in the next tournament to see how he does. I want to see how he measures up against these top teams like Guinan and like Zexxus and Zexxus, or excuse me, Guinan and Mastodon, Zexxus and Zexxus, some of the other top teams like Mimic and Mesrath. I want to see how he measures up against those teams whenever he's on point with a real partner again.
I'm just assuming he recruits Gagnon, and that's the team.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. That would be horribly dirty. I don't think he would, though. Additionally, I'm going to bring up the one I really feel like I missed out on, and some people may not remember that they were in the tournament because they initially entered and then they weren't able to actually make it, was Boinked and Ninja Boy. We haven't seen those guys in a long time, but they were looking like a pretty hot pairing for a while. They played really well. They had great synergy, and hopefully they are able to make it back around for the next tournament. But that was a team I had pegged as a top 5 team going into the tournament, possibly even top 3. And I felt really sad that we didn't get to see them play in a tournament format versus some of these top teams.
Yeah, and particularly because that's it, with regard to like build diversity. I actually think that those two are really, really good for bringing filthy erase combos and stuff like that. Like we've all seen some of the things that they run, and it would have been nice to have had a little more of that type of stuff going on, because actually once it got distilled down to the top few teams, there was quite a bit of homogeny. The builds actually were fairly similar. Everyone was on kind of like quick start, aggressive, relatively low cost offenses, and just being able to charge out and attack right away type of builds.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else anybody wants to touch on the tag tournament? Oh, you didn't do it.
No. And I think someone was saying about dirty tag pairings. I just wanted to get a reply to that real quick. There might be like a fantasy world where someone says, "Look at Zexxus or Doom or Guinan, and what if we mash these people together? What if we let them triple team the whole rest of Phantom Dust, whatever?" But while I get along with both and respect them highly, I actually don't think that would be as good as like. There's so much synergy built into Zexxus and Zexxus, and what I've gotten with Murder, but also a few other people I play with. But without having that synergy, like, it's not that scary when me and Zexxus are on a team. It's okay. We don't have to swap partners, I swear. But but anyways, my moment, I wanted to see more Nathan and Wolf. I think I wanted to see him play Goat and Silent. I think that would have been hilarious. I
think that would have been a really funny setup.
Just more Goat and Silent in general.
But both of them
just more Jackpot. It doesn't even have to be that. Just more, just more Silent with Jackpot. I don't even need.
The commentary.
I just need more Goat.
Really
I just need more Silent with the Jackpot in my life. Yeah,
but I wanted to see how Nathan and Wolf handled some other weird teams. It's unfortunate I didn't get to see those. Those could have been really fun.
Yeah, we wanted that matchup, and actually, it almost happened. It was a coin flip going into the fourth round of Swiss. We could have had them. I think it was the very last like random tiebreaker that had to happen. We
played Reagan instead, right?
Yeah,
no, I played them in round 2 or 3.
Was it? I tried to look back, but I couldn't remember.
I think the decider match for him, he had to play against Ghost and Multitude.
Oh, was that it? Let me pull it up again.
Yeah, I think round 4, Nathan played Ghost and Multitude.
Ghost Multitude, we played.
Yeah, and you guys went to a 5-game series there, didn't you?
We went.
Yeah. But anyways, I wanted to see some more of these, like, our creative players, our Evolutions, our Nathan, our Silence.
More Sandal.
And Sandal. And I wanted to see more those 4 groups intermingling. Because it would have been shenanigans all across the board, hopefully.
It would have been, but I think it speaks volumes that those shenanigan builds really, none of them rose to the top.
I mean, is that just the way things shook out, or do you think there's just an inherent limitation in these formats to quick starts?
I mean, I disintegrated Zexxus like 4 times. I'm pretty sure, right? Like,
I think it's just the way it played out. Like, I think there's even teams that play that stuff well that when they played it, it just, those kind of arsenals, like if you're running an arsenal that's blazing in reincarnation, as long as you have a red in your hand, you're doing what you're supposed to. But when there's a few more moving pieces, like sometimes those arsenals can just come out wrong.
Sure. But I actually don't recall anyone doing capsule popping. Like, I feel as though that simply didn't exist through this entire tournament, essentially. There were a couple times I saw Diabolic Trick, and that was about it.
We popped out Ghost of Multitude on Highway.
On Palace, the game that drew against Zexxus and Zexxus, if there were 30 more seconds, would have came down to capsule popping.
If you want capsule popping, though, we could talk about the 1v1. The shenanigans.
Yeah. Is there anything else anybody wanted to cover on the tag tournament before we move on? No?
Forgot about the capsule popping by Zexxus when it was the first time that we fought Reborn and Mastodon.
Oh, Lane, right? Yeah, that was dirty. I remember that one.
Oh yeah,
you guys.
That really messed me up. I forgot about that.
Yeah, the shatter on Lane was very dirty. Yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to the one-on-one tournament. Are you going to be sticking around with this, Murder?
No, sir. I will not. So thanks for having me on, guys, and I will catch you guys later.
Thanks for your participation in the tournament and the podcast, and congratulations on your well-deserved victory in the tag tournament.
Okay, you can go ahead and get off.
Leave.
So we'll go ahead and move on to the 1v1 tournament, and we've talked a lot about series that have delivered and been exciting, but we'll go ahead and make this one as quick as possible. Everyone's favorite shit show. Let's talk about the 1v1 finals. You want to take that one away? Who's seen it? Nathan, have you seen it?
Let's just give a little bit of background on the semis coming up, because it's been a little bit of time. And the semis were pretty good series.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, the semis, we had RebornGaignun versus Esper. Esper didn't really perform up to what I think a lot of people's expectations would be there. And there's definitely some bad draws and a little bit of tilt. But, I mean, you can't really take away from the fact that Guinan played the series just about flawlessly. The only sad thing is that we can say is that we didn't get to see if Esper was able to handle that level of play, as we didn't see what we would expect out of him. But Guinan really played that series really well. And then we had myself versus Mr. Math, and I will let others comment on that if they want.
The quarter.
No, I played Shadow Shielding.
Oh, quarters. You know what? I actually, while I like the semis, the quarters were my favorite in this entire tag 101 tournament. That's actually what I meant. Without any disrespect to the other ones, the quarters were epic games.
We don't have to talk about those.
Says the guy who lost in quarters. So, well, definitely a lot of fun matches, and we'll talk a little bit more of that, like everybody's favorite moment in that. But I guess let's just briefly, at least, cover the 1v1 finals. Math, did you see the finals for the 1v1?
I actually did not see it.
Okay.
I did not see the 1v1 finals.
Have you watched that, Nathan?
I'm actually like speeding through it again now, because as you all know, I am possibly the worst 1v1 player that ever happened. The main thing I would note at a highway is that it was an extremely slow moving game, but I feel like I could pretty much say that about every 1v1 game that's ever happened.
Braygen, I think, told me he was bored in game. We were just crap talking because we were bored in game.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I did watch a little bit of the highway match, and when I saw Braygen just let his sword go with the angel's wing, I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I saw Braygen jumping back and forth between the divider, and it seemed like a pretty stalemated game at that point. I didn't get to finish it, though.
It ended up, Guinan managed to have a 2-capsule lead because I was kind of burning to try and find something. And once he had the 2-capsule lead, I got down to 6 and he had 8, and then he double violent changed for the win there. And after that, it descended into more idiocy and stupidity, and it
feel like I could break it down, but I think I already did that.
Yeah, did you did you see that series yourself, Zexxus?
Versus you and Gaijinen, or?
Yeah, the 1v1 finals.
I didn't see that either.
Okay, well, I guess not everybody here on the panel seen it. So, yeah, I guess I'll let Guinan and Poor Choices give their little bit on that.
Choices already gave his, so I'll start this off. Okay, I'm starting the video to go with it. Yeah, Highway was deck choice was so important, and it is in 1v1, because in tag, you're each bringing 2 arsenals. You get twice the counters, and twice as much flexibility, plus picking up each other, so much more. In 1v1, if you bring an arsenal that just doesn't work against theirs, it's hard. So he brought Forest Sanctuary, got a solid hang, took no damage through it. I had no counter to it. And you would think that's where the game ends on Highway. But I brought an arsenal that basically could have been a Forest Sanctuary tag arsenal. It was a violent change, heavy defense arsenal with a couple of cheap faith attacks. So going into this, we both had tons of erase and cheap defenses and a couple of little attacks. And so it was slow. It went down to who drew violent change win is actually like what the game was about. And I held mine for a very long time, got a second one, and barely popped him out. He had a DBT.
Good. Was that Braygen's win condition as well?
Yes.
You guys were both.
Braygen actually had less attacks. His win condition was this.
He violent changed once, got some of my capsules, and then was trying to trick the rest. But I had a Rian that was punishing the trick a little, and I didn't dig at all because I had violent change in my hand, and I figured if I wait him out, that was my win condition. Besides
that arsenal has 5 attacks in it, but when you're up against that kind of faith arsenal, and my attacks didn't really come up. Like there was like 2 or 3 of them in the last 6 capsules.
No, and I think you popped one of them yourself.
I accurately had 3 flash holes, 2 Angel's Wings, and 2 erasers, I believe.
I think
There's just too many ray shields, and so I knew that wasn't going to be a viable win condition because there was no way I was able to overcome that number of array shields.
I just don't know like 1v1 builds very well. When you're doing a violent change build, what are the schools you're on usually?
I was Optic Faith, he was Nature Faith.
Opti Faith would be probably the ideal.
Yeah, so he had Nature because he needed Forest Sanctuary, and also the ice skills help freeze so you can Diabolical Trick. I was playing Opti because Eraser Blaster Relearn was kind of my way to go a little longer in the game.
Recall.
I didn't play Recall. I played 2 Relearns, 2 Violent Change.
One of those relearns, though, you had to relearn the
I did.
But he couldn't DB trick you because you kept pop. At one point, he did try, and I think you hit him with Reincarnation 3 times, or two or 3 times. He had the Glacial Wall, but I think he actually burned through the Glacial, which he had to. Yeah, he had, which I mean I get because this is the hindsight argument. But I think if his plan was going to be freezing you to get the capsule lead, I think it's a good plan. I just don't think it quite came out the way he needed it to in the order of his deck, and he kind of paid for it.
If you want to dig into it, what happened there is I had 2 Glacial Walls. I started with 1, and I overrode it pretty quickly because I was really low on aura, and I forgot that I'd already overwritten the first one. And so when I had the choice between the Flash Hole and the Glacial Wall, I was like, oh, I've got another Glacial Wall in here. I'll just erase this one for now, and then I'll get the other one later. Because I was really hurting for aura. And if I was going to start Diabolical Tricking, when you're stuck at 3 and 4 aura, I had to go and overwrite stuff. That was the same thing with the Ice Sword, why I gave it up to the Angel's Wing, because I was at like 3 aura.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of not knowing.
Yeah.
He didn't. There was very little way for him to know that I was on the possibility of 3 violent changes, and at the same time, if he get a capsule lead, that's a win. I knew because I had it that I only wanted the health lead, so I was okay hitting him while he popped. But no perfect information in this game. It made a difference.
No, and if the deck comes out a different way, you never know.
What was that, Nathan?
Pop you out, right? He was getting your final capsules there at the end, right?
I ended up on 2 and he ended up on 0. But then he was popping me once I had him on 0, and so I did end up on 0 capsules.
Out of spite.
But I had the health lead, so.
But that would have been amazing. That would have been amazing if he popped your capsules, you knocked him down with Reincarnation, and he popped up with a Wings of Hope. That would have been so glorious. That would have been like the greatest.
I actually did that recently. I think it was a casual game, but I got popped out and I had a Wings of Hope, and I just kept throwing it as much as it was like +2 damage, so I was just throwing it out there.
Oh my god.
So after Highway, because we don't need to dwell that long, it was a tricksy matchup. If I brought any other deck, he probably would have got me with that quick hang. Bregan planned a pretty dirty combo arsenal. He didn't get a lot of testing, which isn't, that's not really a personal fault, that's just situational. He tried to mobilize mine Graph Press, right? And it involved an Opti, so this is an optical Psycho. Pretty dirty combo in 1v1, because in Tag, you're using multiple one-use skills and they can pick him up. But in 1v1, you hit him, that's it, that health is gone. And so it does have a lot of potential. But in both, he tried to run it back because it didn't go anywhere. In both City and Refinery, I ran some blazing fast arsenals. Refinery is literally blazing. And I had like double heat, trance, lunar force, reincarnation on City in like a minute and a half.
For all that damage, I still think you failed to outdamage Bregan's jumping off the side.
It's a hard situation in general.
It was my moral victory in game 3.
Yeah. He did get the moral victory.
Some Sopoke.
I mean, I was sitting there shieldless against a blazing bullet out in the open. I was like, this is my moral victory.
What's funny is those arsenals, I told him this, I think, in the game. I brought on City an arsenal that I got almost skill from Bregan. And on Refinery, that was my Esper, Esper Blazing. That might have even been the name of it, I'm not sure. But like that was the style. Was hit him really hard with Blazing and Ice Sword, right? and it punishes slow combos. I mean, we saw that Esper versus Evolution, the same exact deal, I think. Slow combo was punished by aggression. It actually inspired me to do so.
Hey, can we, just talking real quickly. So he ran that the mobilized combo in both games 2 and 3. How does it work with the gravity press? So you mobilize into photon burst, right? And then
it's sensor mine. Mobilize sensor mine gravity press.
So if you can hit it, mobilize sensor mine 2 grab presses, that is 19 damage. And then a photon burst, X-Scal, whatever you had left could kill him. Or they could fall off, especially on like Refinery. Falling off could totally be the 20th damage point. And
there's a backup Excalibur and Photon Burst in there too. So you could always mobilize.
How do you get the space to get the gravity press on?
That's why I ran it on the big maps that have a lot of lips as a jumper. And there's also one speed up in there that's supposed to help me get a little bit of distance if I need to. But like if you watch the city one, like I get immediately like 4 aura and 3 grav presses. So it's just
and no mine early.
Yeah, and the sensor mine never came. I have like 2 sensor mines in there. Like neither one came up in either game either. So the combo really just decided not to come out 2 games in a row. I really didn't expect, because I really came in rusty. I hadn't played in like a week and a half, other than like a pickup game for 30 minutes here and there. And so I just wanted to do something fun for the finals. And let's go ahead and move on from Phantom Dust. Let's move on. Go ahead and move away from Phantom Dust's most disappointing.
Well, I actually have another question though.
Ever.
Let's say you test that arsenal some more. Would you add Faith for Mephistos, do you think, or some other change to make it more consistent in the future?
I feel like that whole arsenal would just need a real overhaul, and I haven't really thought too deeply on how I would do it.
Because Mephistos, even 3 school, which sounds terrible, was my first instinct, just to make sure you had the pieces.
Well, the biggest thing, like besides weird draws that really came out wrong, was I had to have Opti down. Like the combo just gets way too expensive without Opti, and so it almost makes me feel like I need an amulet for that. But I was having trouble squeezing skills in already. So
well, if you made it 3 school, you could add level boosts, and you could.
I can't. Trust me, you can't add level boosts in there.
What's the one that fills your aura completely? Is that Forest something?
Graceful Woods or
Graceful
something
Woods,
like that.
and then you could secondarily be a Phantom Dust Arsenal. I think we got something.
Yeah, there you go.
You got something. I don't know what that something is.
You heard it
a little
here.
unwieldy, but yeah, we're gonna move on from the most disappointing finals of all time, and let's talk about everybody's actual favorite moment of the 1v1, reminding people that there were interesting moments in the 1v1, and we'll just forget the finals ever happened. So, we'll start with Poor Choices. What was your favorite moment of the 1v1 tournament?
I mean, it's clearly got to be the Zexxus Reborn, that entire match. I mean, I've already gushed over it, but it's just some of the highest level play that I've seen. Although, I mean, my favorite moment might be seeing Reborn get knocked around by Psycho Burst, even at the group stage, kind of coming up with his loss, and which in his response to that, developing the whole Guard of Water meta to begin with, I think was really a fun turn of events.
Accidentally, because I swear that was a wall of current when I built that arsenal.
Still, a very, very fun turn of events for me. Is that I really enjoyed that.
That's worth mentioning. The young Shadow Shield himself, the only person to take a series off of RebornGaignun in the Phantom Dust 1v1 tournament.
Don't let me forget that Zexxus took one in the first tournament. He sure took it.
That's true. He did. But it was unfortunate the way things worked out for Shadow Shield later on. But yeah, it was a lot of fun watching him give Jake the business end, give Guinan the business end, that is, during the group stage. What about you, Math? What was your favorite moment of the 1v1?
My favorite moment, punching Poor Choices in the face.
Mm-hmm.
hitting him.
I had that coming.
Yeah, hitting him repeatedly was actually pretty satisfying. The actual favorite moment was actually watching the Reborn and Zexxus final was really good. I mean, semifinal was really good, I thought.
Quarterfinal.
I did really enjoy the little rivalry that's come up between you and Poor Choices. It was really fun watching the banter. And whenever I was doing the draws for the bracket stage, I just could not stop cackling like a madman whenever I drew you two against each other. It was just too perfect. It was just too good.
I mean, we realized I was trolling, right? I had no real faith in myself. I just wanted to be part of the conversation.
Man. It was just a prank.
I just wanted to be part of the conversation. Negative attention is attention. Did middle school teach you nothing?
I want to give a follow-up to that. I'm going to wait a minute. I can find it even. I'm going to play it because I have the power right now. I think my favorite was this super close match between Zexxus and Mr. Math in the pod.
Oh God!
Roll the tape, man.
What's that? Math is karma a merry-go-round because it keeps going round and round, baby.
Yeah.
Keeps going round.
You know what? The thing about I was so unprepared about that. I looked back at the match and I was like, "What the hell was I doing?" I'm like, sword fake after sword fake. My face just met his flame sword. I'm just like, what was I doing right there? And it was bad. I'll just pass over that.
That looks bad, but there's a match against me and Sandal where Sandal is one of the monsters, and he just skunks me. He just sword slaps the shit out of me, 20-0. And I just can't wrap my head around whatever this monster's sword launch is. And he never did it to anybody else in the tournament, and he never tried it again. And it just made me feel so much worse.
Well, the best part too is most Phantom Dust players I know have at least seen how troll the monsters can be with swords, but apparently Poor Choices just wasn't aware of that.
I'd never run into it.
And he would just let Sandal walk up and stand next to him, and the timing on that is almost undodgeable because the timing is so fast on the swing of a monster with a sword.
And a 360 if it's a blade.
Yeah,
I'm
and so
used to being able to cartwheel all melee.
He just stood there and took it. Like, he didn't even try to get out of the way. It was just like, take me now.
You know, since to segue off Poor Choices,
so easy to dodge.
To segue off Poor Choices, I remember a game. Who did you play where you got hit by like 4 or 5 Gehennas on Panorama?
It was you, as I recall.
No, that was not me. It was not me. It was on this
4 or 5 Gehennas.
I think that was Evolution.
Was that Evolution? That was so great.
Yeah, I think that was the one when Evolution picked up against Poor Choices. I think it was like a 3-1 series, and he just fired a hand at the living shit out of Poor
I liked
Choices.
it because he had some like really good Willow fire timing and just such good aggression. Choices losing was funny, but it was a really well played game by Evolution.
Yeah, fair. Glad I could be of service to you guys. I mean, I can juggle too. I'm good at parties.
I know you didn't get to see a ton of it, Nathan, but if you had to pick a favorite moment of the 1v1 tournament, what would you say?
Finals.
I love you too.
That was my favorite part. Actually, I'm trying to remember who it was. Funny series. I was actually flipping through YouTube while you guys were talking. It was a series. It was a game on Sign. Like the 2 player, obviously, if you're on Sign, you've played through an entire series, and the 2 players were just like chatting in the most friendly way imaginable. It struck me as like a nice moment, but I can't now.
Was it Bregan and Esper? They didn't get to.
No, that's exactly who it was. It was Bregan and Esper won, right?
No, Esper.
Are you talking about the refund? No, it was 3-1.
Oh, 3-1. 3-1. My bad.
It was 3-1-1. Thank you.
Did you get to sign then? Maybe you're right.
It might have been. I don't remember if we got to sign.
They definitely had some of the best commentary.
Chatting like they weren't like trying to murder each other. I was just like, "What alien world is this?" You know, I think it actually does speak to the difference between 1v1 and what 1v1 can be versus what tag typically kind of turns into, which is, I think, somewhat more competitive. But also, I really do think that tag is like what this game was built to be. And so in some ways, the 1v1, like it's just a little bit stunted, which doesn't mean it's bad. a lot of skills that I just don't think are real useful in 1v1, obviously.
I feel like tag is still, at least I'd say, more competitive in its own way. I think it's definitely my favorite game mode. I feel like 1v1 can just be more intimate, though. It's like Phantom Dust After Dark. You know,
Right, and that's
just have fun.
Yeah, it wasn't a gameplay moment. It wasn't a build. It wasn't like a particularly oppressive tactic, which there are certainly some oppressive tactics you can use in 1-on-1. And to me, like the defining 1v1 experience is just chasing someone around the tree for 6.5 minutes. Like that feels to me like the basic, like that is the fundamental like experience of playing 1v1.
Well, the one thing I was really proud of is that people came in prepared, and we had like maybe 1 or 2 instances the entire tournament where that actually influenced the outcome of a matchup. Almost everybody either was just willing to brawl it out, or if somebody was trying to draw things out, they were prepared for it with capsule poppers. We did not see very much of that, because that was something I was worried about with a 1v1 tournament, but that did not happen. People were on top of their game, and
I
went
drew
really
a ton
well.
on Palace, but I never ran around the tree. I want to make that stated.
I gotta say, I gotta give shout outs to Kamikaze Mario for the biggest oh shit moment I had in a tournament. When he jumped, he did one of the best plays. He jumped through the crack in the tree on Palace. And as I was popping him out, I think I had like four bars left of health, and he just jumped through the tree. And what was it, Breaking? Do you remember? Was it a Fire Gehenna or was it a?
I don't remember
Agonies?
what he popped you.
I think it was Agonies because he needed to get his health down.
Yeah, I think he picked it up and he grabbed an Agonies and he just popped you and took the match win, and that was like the best mic drop of the tournament. I forgot.
That was my favorite. But my favorite about that was just I was talking to him about it, and because on video it's just the most like decisive, like, oh well, you're that far, I'm gonna immediately get myself to critical health level and just get off a quick shot. And I talked to him about it. He was like, yeah, you know, I saw him over there and I was like, I don't want to walk all the way over there. And so to us, it looks like just the smoothest moment. And he was just like, yeah, you know, get a shot off.
It was good. It was
good though. It was so good.
I will add in, I got a message from Zexxus. He was having some connection problems. He's not going to be able to finish out the rest of the podcast, so it'll just be down to us 5 now. So, Guinan, what was your favorite part of the 1v1 tournament? Your favorite moment?
I mean, did I mention math? I actually am playing the math and Zexxus match. I'm sorry. No, but
are you talking about math losing in the semifinals?
I actually really liked the match between me and Shadow Shield. Like, yes, I lost it, but it went long and it was really fun and it was so unexpected at the time and now. Like, I could not have tell you if you asked that would have happened.
I don't know. You got some revisionist history here. I have never seen you saltier than after that match.
I sure was, but it was unexpected. If I told you someone was going to beat me, I would not have told you it was going to be Shadow. So like my reality of Shadow being I told you I'm not worried about him. I don't know him. Well, I sure got told. I got put in my place there, and like in the moment there's emotion, but afterwards, like as for the game and as for a match, it was a really good experience.
We do like when you get put in your place.
Hey, you don't get to do it often, so take it when you can.
See, it's that Fortress of Arrogance move you're so good at.
Shout outs to Shadow, though. He came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
He did a good job.
It's good.
All right,
yeah,
so that's
some people
1v1. What do we have?
First tourneys. But
well, I was going to say, to finish it out, were there any matchups or players that you wished you could have seen more out of in the 1v1? We'll start with Math on this one.
Who I would have wanted to see more out of. I'm not sure. That's a tough call. I think Murder went out pretty early. I would have liked to see him go a little bit farther, but
yeah, he was in a group with me and Esper, and so a lot of groups you could look at and say, oh, yeah, those two, I'm pretty sure those are going to be the two that make it out. Group D had a lot of parity, and then Group A had 3 players that were kind of like that. And Murder was one of the victims of that triangle.
Yeah.
And,
also, Multitude. I would like, Multitude is a veteran player. I would have liked to see him make it out a little bit farther also.
What about you, Poor Choices?
I mean, he was in my group, and I know had he made it, it actually would not have helped me. But I was just so entertained because I casted a lot of his matches as well. I really wanted to see more of Sandal, just because every time you're watching Sandal do something, you're just sitting there feeling for the other guy, like, oh my god, you have to deal with this situation, and there's literally nothing you can do right now. And it's so fun to watch that absolute misery. It is just Schadenfreude at 110%. And I enjoy it.
Good old Collected Dust, the mad scientist of Phantom Dust. It's true. I would have liked to have seen more too. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to close out some of his shenanigans. He didn't advance from Group D.
Worked against me.
Instead, we were blessed with having Poor Choices make it to quarters just to have a great showing there.
Wasn't my best. I don't want to take away from Matt because he beat me up and down, but I also wasn't my best.
Yeah.
Would he have beaten me at my best? Yes, but I wish I could have still had my best.
Was there any matchup that you would have liked to have seen or a player you wish you could have seen more of in the 1v1 tournament, Nathan?
Yeah, actually, the Wolf. And I wish, my regret with the Wolf, watching him play 1v1, I really wish he had spent a little more time for it. Because I feel as though with decks that were a little more, customized for 1v1 play, he could have been a real threat. Now, he was in a tough bracket, right? Because he was with Gaignun and he was with
Shadow Shield.
What's his face? Who I think he got beat by, right? He lost the Shadow Shield series. So those were his 2 losses. I wish the Wolf had a little more time to, kind of head scientist up some builds and really go at it, because I think he's a phenomenal 1v1 player.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see some more of that out of him. What about you, Guinan?
Yeah, Matt. Wolf was a good match actually with me. Like, it definitely wasn't as close as me versus Zexxus, but if you picture all that rust coming off and playing as like a lean, mean fighting machine, could have been some interesting stuff. I echo that.
And he was using like lasers. I mean, he was like on long range skills. He wasn't using stuff that in my mind is really built for 1v1 play.
Mm-hmm. I echo that I want more Sandal versus everyone, just because he's a sweet guy, blast to play and watch. But what's unspoken, and I'm surprised, is Esper versus Zexxus. That's what I wanted to see.
Yeah, I think Esper versus Zexxus would have been a really fun matchup. I know they'd have been sparring a lot, and the results kind of went back and forth depending on who you asked about how the results went. And we saw some of their videos posted just sparring, and I think that would have been a really fun one to watch. And I think that would have been a player that I would have liked to see against a few more players outside of Group A. I would have really liked. Yeah, I got the chance to play him myself, and I really enjoyed playing him. But I would have loved to see Esper, how he would have fared in, say, Group D or in Group C. I think it would have been a lot of fun to have him injected into and see how he fared in those matchups as well, say against Shadow Shield or against Evolution and Monkey and Sandal and Poor Choices.
Yeah. So part of the reason I wanted Zexxus versus Esper is the same reason people want to see me fight Zexxus again in tag, is that there's this very friendly rivalry. Like, it's just good feelings for the community beating up on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, before I played Esper, it wasn't the best, us both at our best kind of series, but he would always message me like, "You gonna 1v1 me finally? You gonna do it? Come on, let's do it." And he'd get on like an hour after I went to bed, so we never got a chance to play.
Okay. Is there anything else anybody else want to talk about the 1v1 tournament before we wrap that up?
It was a good time. I think it was a very fun tournament. I think the semifinals, I hate everybody. It sucks. But it was a great time. A lot of good competition. And you really see a clear cut on what's really the meta of 1v1, what works, I think. I think it's pretty well fleshed out now.
Yeah, cartwheeling. Boom.
Yeah, so that actually goes into, I believe for the next 1v1 tournament, the meta needs to move towards refinery only play-o-matos with snap. And I think that needs to be the meta. Add confused gravity and dash if you want, but like anything else isn't top tier play, to be honest.
That would legitimately destroy me.
Implying that anything else wouldn't legitimately destroy you anyway.
I mean, legitimately destroy me, but
so I don't know if we still want to talk about it now that we've had a few people drop. Did we still want to talk about tournament format? What we liked, what we didn't like?
I don't know that we need to. We definitely want to do another video pretty soon that's going to cover what we are expecting to do next year, but we haven't really hashed out the full schedule yet, right?
No, we haven't hashed out the full schedule. So we were going to talk about, and this might be new for a few of you here in the podcast, the moderators of Phantom Dust Revived have been talking a little bit about tournaments going forward, and we've been addressing what has and hasn't worked and tournaments that have and haven't worked. And one of the main things is going to be having, we can tell you a few things now, and we're going to have more coming out hopefully here at the beginning of the year. We're going to try and get together at least one more time and try and develop a solid plan. But the way that the tournaments are going to work on the Phantom Dust Revived here going forward is it's not going to really be done anymore where it's my 1v1 tournament or Nathan's tag tournament or whoever's whatever tournament. We're going to start trying to do a joint tournament running between all of the moderators on Phantom Dust Revived. So the next tag tournament and the next 1v1 tournament to come up will be run by all of the moderators and the tournament cast. So that way we can all work together and support each other and not one person gets burnt out trying to run a tournament. We found that basically both tournaments, the 1v1 and the tag tournament, at some point, the tournament organizer for that tournament needed help from somebody else. And so we're going to try and move away from having individual people running tournaments. And so if you want to run a tournament with Phantom Dust Revived or you have an idea for one, just approach us with it and we'll see how we can incorporate it and get you involved. But we're going to move towards that direction where it's going to be tournaments run by the group and not just by an individual. And one of the other things that we're excited to talk about is we don't have any dates set or anything quite yet, which is one of the main things we wanted to discuss. But we're going to have an actual schedule coming out, a calendar kind of set for when the next tournaments are going to come out for the following year. We're going to be planning kind of by season, a tag tournament in like the spring and then again in the fall. And then also the 1v1 will run like winter, summer, for example. And we're going to be trying to space that out a little bit better. And we're also going to have room for other one-off tournaments or short-term tournaments. And we might have anywhere from 4 to 12 of those throughout the year as well. And we're going to try and put out dates for those early. So that way you know when they are, when the signups are going to begin. And you can plan your schedule a little bit more easily.
One of the goals with this is we're going to be shortening the lead time. So the signups are going to be shorter. You know, since the dates are set, we'll be able to say, look, the signups are going to be starting on the Saturday, and on the following Saturday, round one's going to begin. And we're going to be working really hard to keep these tournaments moving with the schedule we have set so that they, you know, so we don't have any more 4-month tag tournaments, for example. But that we're hoping that, you know, with a brisker, somewhat more, you know, pre-scheduled format, that we'll be able to do a better job adhering to that, and people will be able to make, you know, decisions as to which tournament they want to, you know, take part in, knowing that there will be more down the pike if they choose to, you know, step aside for one. But also, hopefully, I think, and I'm actually quite certain that this will work, giving a little more space so that people are excited for the next event as it's coming up.
Mm-hmm. And if I may, another important thing is, we want to make a clear division between the two types of tournaments we're doing. Some people were missing out on them because it's really hard to commit to long-term tournaments when you don't know when you're going to schedule each match or how long it's going to go. And so we're going to have a mix of tournaments where you can see teams develop and play over time, long, grindy, good duels, but also stuff that might just be at the day of. You know, 1-day tournaments or 1 weekend tournaments, get it over with, 1 or 2 week tournaments, so that everyone can get a chance to play regardless of schedules. We're adults with not much time, and we want to be able to see everyone, and having these flash tournaments, as I think we've kind of made a name for them, also lets us do silly stuff. You know, you saw a battle royale where we all just it was called Triple Team Gainen, the battle royale, where we might also see a special environment or a heavy tournament, or we've got maybe a plan for something that'll switch up different match types or switch partners in the middle of it, and this will just give fresh air.
Yeah, what happened with that flash tournament?
Oh, I don't know. Some guy basically wheeled and dealed and was given the win by crying about it for about an hour and a half until everybody helped him.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
winning is winning. True.
I have a moment to set for you. Me, SomePoorChoices, and Bregan are singing a battle royale, and I say to Choices, who hasn't seen the finals of the 1v1, I say, the champions of all the tournaments are in this game, but you don't know who's who. Choices double team me again. The end.
Well, that's
Battle Royale has to win. I'm just saying. There's a clear way to win Battle Royale.
Yeah. Well, I think that just about wraps us up, unless there's any other bits you wanted to talk about going forward, Nathan or Guinan.
I want a public thank you to Nathan and Bregan for organizing this. I helped. Choices helped commentate wonderfully a lot of these, but the bulk of it was on your two shoulders, or your three, I guess, between you guys. Honestly, so much hard work, organization. I tried to help pick up slack when there were hard weeks, and I realized, wow, I can't even do this very well. This is impressive hard work. Bregan, how many videos did you record? 6,000?
Somewhere in that ballpark.
I mean, he tanked his rating. He opened his schedule to make sure that everyone could see these videos. So if you haven't, on his YouTube, everything, so much Phantom Dust. If you had to take 2 weeks off for a hiatus, it's okay. You could still watch Phantom Dust every day and find some new way to kill SomePoorChoices.
Yeah, there's so many. But seriously, no, Bregan and Nathan, that was great. Nathan with all the graphs and the Swiss and all the math. I can't even do the math that went into that. That's just an insane amount of work.
I don't even think Mr.
Really
Math can do the math.
Cool. No.
Bang up job.
That's my favorite part of it. I really love doing that kind of stuff. My dream was to have it so that we could do some sort of a really longitudinal event where people would have stats, and there'd be an ongoing like a true ELO league, as opposed to just Swiss. But it's really tough. There are advantages and disadvantages, and I actually do think that the discrete events work best, in my opinion.
But if anyone out there is listening, wants to do a big write up and send it to one of these websites about the community, you could just look at those, and those are article ready. Even some of the breakdowns of the matches, boom, good to go.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed hosting, and most of the time I enjoyed participating. There were a few times that I was a little salty. And I think that's true for most participants, not named Guinan, who gets to win everything. Not salty at all.
I got psycho bursted.
That's true. That was a good moment for me. One that I will treasure and remember at late nights for a very long time. But it was a lot of fun, and I think we're going to be able to have a lot more fun still with Phantom Dust. We're going to try and keep burnout in mind. Players aren't the only ones who've had some burnout. I know some of us as coordinators had some as well. And so we're going to try not to overload you, but we're going to try and keep an even flow so that there are tournaments you can participate in, but there's not so many going on at once that you feel like you can't commit to them. So we're going to try and find the balance. We're going to try and keep this community going and just have fun playing Phantom Dust. It's a game that anybody who's listening just about has an extreme passion for, and one of the most obedient cult followings I've ever seen. And I really appreciate everyone who is a part of the tournaments and everyone who's a part of the community, even if they didn't play in the tournament. We appreciate you. We hope you join us in the next tournament. And thank you so much for all that you guys do.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you, Dead Sea Bregan.
And on that ends this episode of Club Baroness.